Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching this Ag Forecast brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions. Looking here at some satellite data throughout the afternoon today, we did notice that running around the edge of the larger ridge here, there is a frontal boundary. That frontal boundary has then slipped through parts of Minnesota into Iowa and Wisconsin. Now, generally, as we start to get toward the late afternoon, you can start to see the haze that is in the atmosphere from the smoke from the wildfires that are in the west. And there's been a few storms that have popped over parts of Arkansas and this part of Oklahoma and Texas as well. You do also see the tropical event we're going to be talking about here in just a few moments. But I'd like to just take you quickly. Why don't we just do a sub-regional sector right over here, and let's flip this over to Composite Radar. You see the storms that are moving into this area, so we're talking about these in through here, have initiated much earlier than initially thought. Some of the models didn't have these storms really igniting here until much later this afternoon. And as a result, as they've come through, I can kind of rock you through here. This is kind of the first round that's made its way through. Now the question remains, is there still enough of a boundary behind this to initiate storms again tonight, or are we going to watch these storms and their outflow move through southwestern Wisconsin over into parts of northern Illinois and eventually become a broader storm system that will set up for tomorrow across parts of, from Missouri to Illinois over to Indiana and Ohio, and we do have some severe weather risk with that. So these are the storms we're watching very carefully today. Again, not well initialized in the model. It's hard to do, so just tough to go there. Now the storms that came through earlier this morning did put down some precipitation in Iowa, and we have yet to see the new rains that have come into this area over the last hour or so get added into this. There's usually about a 2-hour delay in this particular map. But you do notice that this is an extremely dry area that has had some locally heavy rainfall, but it's not the widespread coverage that we want. We have some questions whether or not we're going to get that in just a few moments. Right now, though, it's very hot. We have got down here excessive heat watches and warnings, red flag warnings that extend here. These are all air quality advisories. So this is coming from the smoke. This is coming from the stagnant, hot, and not very strong winds. And this area right in through here, what we are watching is for excessive heat. So these are heat advisories. Flood watches have been posted over the south, and that's going to be for the tropical system I'll show you in a few moments. But let's come back and take a look at those current temperatures. So this was as of about 4:40 in the afternoon. Triple digits hitting a big section here in the middle part of the United States, and of course it's extremely hot over here in the desert southwest through the Central Valley of California. But that frontal boundary right in through here is the one we're going to watch most carefully, because it will line out like this tomorrow, and we need to see what that's going to do to the temperatures in a few moments, but first of all, what it's going to do to precipitation. So in my extended video, I go in depth with what's going on with the storms coming through this area and the threat for damaging winds, large hail, and possibly isolated tornadoes. So watch that if you're curious about the dynamics of this system. But this is the risk the Storm Prediction Center is watching most carefully. And you've seen the storms already through here. And again, they are quite early in the day to be getting to that area compared to what the models had suggested. To show you what the models thought, let me just take you out here. This would be out to, well, that's Thursday at 7 p.m. Did you notice that's when the models thought today when the storms would initialize here? Both the high-res NAM, the high-res HER, that's what we thought. And so you can see the storms were expected to, in the overnight hours, to move through southern Wisconsin into northern Illinois, possibly producing some damaging straight-line winds here. And then early in the morning, the end of it coming over to lower Michigan and into Indiana. And then as we work the way through tomorrow, a couple of things you notice. Scattered storms north, but then a frontal boundary parked in through here. And the Storm Prediction Center is quite concerned over this area and the risk of damaging straight-line winds, hail, and once again, isolated tornadoes. And so as you can see, let's get those off of there. The timing of when this is going to come through, be it late in the afternoon or early evening, and then progressing into the overnight hours, this gets out to midnight. Saturday, so this is Friday night to Saturday morning. We could watch multiple rounds of storms that stretch along that frontal boundary. It's being fed by very unstable air, and we're going to watch it carefully. Now, meanwhile, before I show you the risk area here, I would like to point out some storms in the high plains, and also, if you look right in through here, this is where the NAM model is putting that tropical system. Now, it is not expected to rapidly strengthen, but you do notice it's putting down potentially very heavy rain for Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia. And then our next big system starts to take shape here on Saturday, and that one's going to come right through here, and I want to show you what that's going to do in a moment. First, let's just take a look at the Convective Outlook for tomorrow on Friday, and you can see that the Storm Prediction Center is identifying that boundary, putting the greatest risk from eastern Illinois through central Ohio. And so this is going to be the area we'll watch most carefully tomorrow for those severe storms. Could be, again, an overnight situation. National Hurricane Center still got this at a 90% chance of developing into a tropical system, which means becoming a tropical depression. But at this stage, that would keep the wind speeds under 39 miles an hour, so the max sustained winds. But it appears that it's going to come into Louisiana and make a pretty hard turn to the right as that frontal boundary to the north and the winds associated with it guide the system toward the Carolinas. And what I'm going to do next is I'm going to show you 3 different forecasts. The first is going to come from the Weather Prediction Center. So this is when NOAA and the National Weather Service combine the model data with their trained meteorologists who are exceptional, and they produce this map. So what you got here is total precipitation through the next 7 days, so getting us out to next Thursday. And what you take note of is the heavy rain corridor in through here from the tropical system. There's the potential for 4 to 8 inches of rain, and that's going to hit some very saturated ground. But I want to take note of this because the models, when you see the maps, attempt to give this kind of broad brush, smoothed view of everybody getting rainfall, right? But we have to recall that it's summertime. The convection that we get is locally heavy, but the models are looking at first system stalling a boundary here, the second system coming over into the weekend through this area, and that's a couple of chances for rainfall. And we need to see how much, because that area so far at the beginning of June has been exceptionally dry, many having their driest start to June on record. Whereas where the tropical system is going to go, well, we've talked about this flooding here and the recent flooding in the Carolinas. That's going to increase. So with this map as a backdrop, let's add to it 2 more things, and then we'll get into that forecast. First, last 14 days percent of normal. The rains that are coming into this area are going to provide a temporary bit of relief to the longer standing drought issues in that area. We will make worse the flooding problems that have been farther to the south through the mid-Atlantic. We need to see how much rain we do get into Kansas out of this forecast as well. I'll show you that in a few moments. But here's the other issue. I just did some analysis on this, and generally what I was able to find was that in this area, if we wanted to ensure that by the time we got into August, okay, so we're talking 45 days from now, that this area has been relieved of drought, we need to be bringing in about 1.5 inches of rainfall, relatively widespread, each week for the next 6 weeks. Now that would guarantee a huge crop, and it would eliminate these drought concerns. But at this point, what's the likelihood of something like that happening? Well, it's going to depend on some important things with the MJO and atmospheric momentum, and basically keeping the jet stream winds out of Canada and more in the United States. Now, is that going to happen? Let's go take a look. Let's do our multi-model analysis. I got the GFS on the left, the European on the right. Okay. Now, watch this. Let's just go through this quickly. Thursday into Friday, Saturday. In fact, can you do something for me? Blur your eyes. Watch it again. Friday, Saturday, into Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, I'm going fast. Thursday, Friday. Now, if I do this and just go back and forth, do you see how the 2 maps look like they mirror one another? But there are some differences, and I'd like to discuss them. First, please remember that these models are not well designed to pick up on convection. So, Friday night, GFS, European, you don't see it in here, do you? But there will be storms in that area, and it'll really show up in the overnight. So you see right in through this region, expect more than what you get out of the models here. That's what the short-term models were showing us. The tropical systems, there's a slight difference in when that moisture gets in, but overall the models are in better agreement about where it's going through Saturday. So you see it here and here, very heavy rainfall. There will be a lingering boundary into Saturday, keeping scattered storms into the east as well. Let's go from Saturday into Sunday, and I want to stop here on Sunday evening. Both models bring in a low pressure system. There's generally lower pressure in this area. But the European, as you notice, is wetter over the upper Midwest and doesn't extend the wetter conditions down into Kansas, for example. The GFS does. Now, we know that the GFS generally produces more rain in convective environments than the European model does. But it's also more aggressive. You see, as we go out here to Monday morning, afternoon, and evening, the GFS takes that frontal boundary much farther to the east than the European, which leaves it lingering over some of the I-states here back toward Missouri and Oklahoma. And as we then go from Monday into Tuesday morning, afternoon, and evening, the European still has the front in through here, whereas the GFS has got it offshore already. So much quicker with bringing in the higher pressure is the GFS than the European. Now after that, going out to next Wednesday into Thursday, the GFS continues to bring systems into this area, but in the European, it doesn't show up until Thursday morning. And that comes through parts of eastern Kansas, almost right over Kansas City into Missouri. See that? That's in both models. But here we are getting toward next Thursday and next Friday. And this system here that's in both models, not perfectly resolved yet. We need to watch this over the weekend to see how it shows up. But it is the source of just another round of precip into that area. So let's distill this all down into a couple of maps. European first. What you notice is that the European dry in the Canadian prairie, through the northern plains, and right in through this corridor. It's drier in the plains here and into Texas. What does the GFS do? Well, this is the GFS. It's got a much wetter corridor in through here than the European did. And sometimes it's just easier to compare them. So whereas these last two maps show you precipitation anomalies for the model shown, I used the same color bar, but now on this map, these colors are where the GFS is wetter. These colors are where the European is wetter. And as you saw, the GFS is wetter over that key area that is in drought. The GFS is wetter. All right, with that, where's this all going? Things are getting blocked up in the Pacific. Let's keep the model comparison going. GFS left, European right. Pretty good agreement through Saturday into Sunday. And what happens is that both models by early next week paint this picture. I'll draw on the European. Deep trough in the Aleutian Islands, ridge going into British Columbia, trough to the south. See how they both have that? That gives us what we call a blocked pattern of high over low, more north-south flow than west to east. There's a reflection of this trough here, and there will be a frontal boundary to the south of it there. And that will be the corridor with which open Gulf of Mexico moisture could produce more storms into week 2. It's in both models. They tend to split on their timing beyond that. But in general, the European is going to be drier into week 2 than the GFS. And the primary reason, much higher amplitude ridge in the GFS than the European, and a deeper downstream trough in the GFS compared to the European. And what you end up getting is this. The European does keep this corridor wetter than normal. Why? There's a frontal boundary here in the model, and we're pumping Gulf moisture into it. That's been a consistent story through this entire week. The GFS has got a much larger area that is wetter, but interestingly enough, it's been drier than normal along the coast, despite the moisture coming in here. So I don't think it's going to be quite as dry as this suggests. A lot of scattered storms in this area. Expect that. But it's much wetter. The GFS is much wetter in this area. Okay? Temperatures quickly, and we'll wrap this up. Over the next 5 days, remember, the trough digs in, some cooler weather comes in. A lot of this heat you see here is right now and tomorrow on Friday. But the west is going over extremely hot. But how long does that last? Because out there today, 5 through 10, remember the high over low pattern? So the ridge builds into British Columbia. You could get some cooling in the Central Valley of California, maybe as soon as middle of next week because of this trough off the shore. But overall, while the models have moderated a bit, the deeper trough over the east shows us with near normal to below normal temperatures by a couple of degrees. Now, if you watch that extended video, I'm going to make a point about what's going on in the longer range. I'm just going to show it to you here. The latest runs from the European extended, which just came out about an hour ago, dried this area out between now and July 27th. It's gotten drier here in the latest forecast. And this is primarily wet because we just keep feeding it Gulf moisture. So check out that extended video to get the details. I'll wrap it up there, though. Thanks for your attention today.